Hey everybody, it's Mike and Adam here from the woods and waters of Florida, and this time we're going to show you a little bit about turkey hunting and how to process and break down a turkey for home consumption. We just got back from a really good hog hunt, and might get a little bit of that later. Double, dude.
Camera either, because I don't think they came far enough forward. But that's all right.
The gunshots are there. They came in all the way from the other.
Yep. All right, so run us through what just happened, Adam.
All right, so we came out here on some public land here in Florida, and we heard some gobbling on the roost. About 3/4 of a mile maybe away?
Yeah.
Tried to close the gap on that, and I mean, we got really close. They were hammering on the roost, and then all of a sudden we could hear them moving away down a little spit of land around some water. They stopped gobbling around 8 o'clock in the morning, and we just kind of thought about all the possible scenarios, read the clues that we were given, and decided to set up on this spot at about 10 o'clock in the morning. We had a jake out with a hen and did some soft clucks and yelps, and sure enough, they started gobbling again within about 200 yards. And I'd say it took about a minute and a half for them to close that 200-yard gap. Looked up, and there's 3 gobblers about 12 yards on our right, and we managed to make 2 good shots and got a double here. So that being said, with turkeys, it's definitely can be a game of cat and mouse. So stick with it. If they're not vocal, just try to use the landscape to your advantage. Know where they want to be and try to cut them off and give them something to entice them to come in. And that jake seemed to do the trick, because these 3 gobblers came in just red-headed, fired up, ready to jump on that jake. So, but happy to get the job done here today, and super happy with the double. So now we'll get back, start the processing. Hey, so we got our birds back home, and you can see up against the one that we harvested last week, the difference of rigor mortis. That's what it's all about. One's limp and one's a little stiff. So we can discuss that more later, but that's a good example of rigor mortis and why you should pay attention to it. So now we're going to go into cutting the tail fan off. You're going to find the vent of the bird. There's some bone there also. You're just going to cut right through that, and you'll have your tail fan. You're going to want to trim away as much meat as you can in the process. We can do that later. But for now, we're just going to get that off there. All right, so now we're going to come in and trim away any excess meat that we see in preparation for the next step. So we go down to our local feed store, and we're able to get some affordable stock salt. And we can just rub that in there, and later I'll put borax in as well. But for now, we just want to rub as much of that salt in as we can, any exposed parts. And then we're going to spread the fan out to the position we eventually want it in. And I use these little roofing nails. You can also use a hanger, the kind that clip that are usually for pants. That works really well if you want to hang it upside down. But I found mounting these on a board. It's just a good way that works for us. Here we're just going to kind of clean everything up, straighten everything out as we can, making sure everything is laid as cleanly and neatly as possible. All the feathers are overlapping each other. Very rough for now, but we can get into the final steps later in that. All right, with our beard, you're going to want to reach up as high as possible. There's a distinct line there where there's skin, and then there's the hair. So you're going to want to reach up there, and again, just rub that with salt. And then we're going to go to our legs. You find where the joint articulates, and you're going to find the tendons. Sometimes you're going to be able to bend those out, and you'll be able to see them, or they'll break. Once you get your tendons exposed, it'll be pretty easy to go in there and just clip them off with the end of your knife. Saws and game shears, all those things,
They help, but articulate your joint, find your tendons, and cut them. And it's also very easy to do. All right, so here you can see our primary, secondary, and tertiary feathers of the Osceola, and where they've been strutting, fighting, and rubbing along the ground. You really see that wear and tear on these. A lot of people will use these. Many uses for the turkey feather. It really never gets old looking at these, the colors on these. And just a reminder, when you're plucking, you're not so much pulling the feathers out as you're trying to push the skin down, because you want to keep that skin on your bird. This one's a little roughed up from the shot, but it's still, any bird's worth plucking, in my opinion. A lot of folks won't take the time to pluck a bird, but I firmly believe in trying to use as much as you can. And you can get that nice, clean grocery store look with a properly placed shot. This bird was not a good example of that. So there's a couple ways to go about this. You can do the water dunk, which we're going to show later. I'm going to do that to get the last of it off, but this bird was actually easier to pluck than I thought, so we just kept on this way. And also, the waxing technique has been thoroughly discussed, I think, elsewhere. So if we have any questions on that in the Q&A, we can go over that as well. So another good tool to have in your arsenal is a wing to mimic the sound of a fly down in the morning. You can use your hat for this also, but got a good wing. If you're gonna dunk your bird, you want to make sure your water, is around 160, 165 degrees or under. Any hotter, you're going to start to cook your skin on the outside. You're basically trying to get the follicles to open up a little bit and just let those feathers slip out. 20, 30-second dunk. You can test it by kind of rubbing your hand along it. This is the way we pluck a lot of poultry here at the house. There's also the wax method, which if you really wanted to get the fine feathers off, you could either use wax, or I like to use the little handheld blowtorch for a lot of small game and the pin feathers on birds. But you can see here, once you have it a little warm and opened up, they should just scrape right off with your hand. Anywhere where you have a shot hole, you might want to watch for where a feather has actually gone internally. It'd be a little harder to get out, and the wings are always pretty tough to get them out. So, but after a little bit, you'll have a clean looking bird. All right, now that the outside's taken care of, we're going to take a look at the inside. Be able to pull up a piece of the skin below the vent to expose the cavity. And the first thing we're going to reach for is the gizzard, which is one of my favorite internal edibles. It's basically two plates that, with the grit inside, are used to grind up what the bird eats so it can digest. So we're going to take that out, and we're going to save that for later. where the lower intestine comes out, we're going to reach up and grab that and essentially pull the whole entrails out using our other hand to help. You can see kind of everything in one piece there. We're going to look for the liver and keep that. We like to keep the heart too. Now we're going to take our 2 fingers and run down the backbone to try to get at the lungs and any of the other remaining organs to clean the inside of the cavity out. All right, now that we've kind of ruptured everything on the inside, we're going to drain as much of the blood out as we can. So another step is to open up by the breastbone and look at the crop of the bird, which in this case was very small and empty. But we're going to go in there ahead and clean that out anyway. Just cut under the surface so you can expose, and then reach in there. You can see the trachea and the esophagus, and you can sort of see the crop on this one. It's very small, and there wasn't very little in it, but you can learn a lot right there. You can see the crop. We're just going to go ahead and remove everything and get this ready for further processing inside. All right, so we got our mostly cleaned bird here. The skin is very dry, which is what you want. You want to make it nice and crisp. So right now we're going to do what's called spatchcocking, which is essentially cutting down the backbone to even out the bird into flat cooking surface. And you can see all these, we can get to these before we make the stock out of the bones. We're just going to take the game shears here and as best we can cut straight down the backbone. All right, so my decade-old game shears just broke. So I'm gonna break out the big gun here with the hatchet. Just using the same hole, rubber mallet, the weight of the mallet. Is gonna do the same job. There is a spatchcock bird. Cool. So there's a couple ways. The little metal detector wands. You can wave over this to look for shot. Typically, I do braises with the legs and thighs, so it'll all come out wash, so to speak. But from here, you'd be able to join out the animal. Again, everything comes down to how you want to package it, how you want to cook it. But here's a good start.
All right, so we have the Benchmade meat crafter here, and I'm gonna take it right down what's called the keel bone. So that's essentially the breastbone that's gonna separate the two lobes, or breast. So you're gonna find the keel bone, run it right down. Your knife is gonna naturally fall to one side or the other, and once you get that, you can work your way around. Alright, so you'll be able to reach down there and you'll be able to feel that keel bone and just peel the meat away from it. And then you'll make your cut up to the wishbone. And down. And it's kind of a lift and peel and cut at the same time. You can see all the meat as much as you can off there. And you can save a little bit for your stock. There's a couple ways you can go about this. You can find the articulation of the bones and cut them out that way, or you can hatchet, game shears. Either way, you just want to keep continuing to cut the meat off the bone. Working around any areas that were shot or otherwise damaged. You can see the wishbone right there. So always want to save that for the kids if you can. So now you got two halves of your turkey. One with keel bone attached. So at this point you just go ahead and trim that keel bone out for stock. And you can see the breast and the tenderloin are two separate pieces. So when people talk about chicken tenderloins or turkey tenderloins, that's the part they're talking about. It's a separate piece from the actual breast, but if you do it right, they can be joined together as one lobe. Unfortunately, our wishbone got hit a shot. Let me show this. This is the oyster back here. So it's a very delicious part of your bird. You don't want to forget it. Probably one of the tastiest, tenderest parts. But goes back and forth between the neck and the oyster as to which one I like the most. But definitely don't want to skip the oyster right there. That's going to be part of the thigh as you trim it off. And again, you can find that joint, articulate it. This one actually pops back. Ooh. This one actually pops back pretty easily. So there we got the thigh with the oyster and the leg. And we can easily remove that in one piece. And that's great for braising, smoking, a lot of connective tissue in there, so you really want to do it a long time, low temperature. Try to find any shot along the way. See, get some nice dark meat. Beautiful stuff. That's your breast. And again, we can go back in and singe these hairs off. Clean it up, dry it back out. Then we have a nice skin on breast right there. Joint. There's your wing. I'm gonna keep that, and again, that can go in the stockpile right there. So come the wing this way. Basically the same thing. You just throw the wing there. So that's a little. That wing's a little more shot up. You can see that joint there. And then the thigh. Come back around. Underneath the breast, you see that leg was shot up. We'll just work around that using the anatomy of the animal. And working around anything that was or was not affected. So, see where that joint was shot there with the leg. We can follow it up to the thigh joint right there and pop that. And remember to go back in there and get that oyster. So you're just cutting tendon through bone. Until you can get that joint free. There's your breast without your tenderloin. That would be your tenderloin right there, or what they call the tenderloin. So you can see the tendon running through it. When you cook a breast whole, keep in mind that that's going to be there if you smoke it or roast it. If you're really skilled with a knife, you can cut that out. Keep this whole. If the bird's,
commercial birds, a lot easier to do with, obviously, because they're not. They come in a lot cleaner. But yeah, that's the basic breakdown. Stockpile. Wings will probably get trimmed up, singed off, go into the stock pot along with that.
Alright, so you guys have seen a little bit about hunting and processing wild turkeys. Stick around and you'll see some recipes and cooking.